Hey everybody, my name's Andy, he, him pronouns. I am gonna dive in a second, but first I just want to say, um, uh, if you can come on to video, that would be great. We're gonna have some interaction, some breakout rooms happening. So that will be part of what we're doing today. And then the other thing I'll say is I'm going to talk a lot about treatment and some of the dynamics of treatment and recovery. And um, that's not to these aren't working, be critical of anyone or any particular person or institution. And I hope it's not taken that way. But I think obviously we have issues with the way that we approach recovery in the nation. And so that's going to be part of the discussion. And my goal is to be provocative and make people think, hopefully. Um, we'll see if we hit the mark on that. So without further ado, just start the presentation piece. And this is all stuff that will be available after, and I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. Also, I have some of my coworkers here. Thanks for coming. They'll be helping out. Yeah, let's go. So here we go. This should work. Title slide, subtitles. Very exciting. So this is kind of the overview of today. I'll go through some goals and intros, talk about Phoenix, the organization I work for, a bit, and then where we are and kind of where we might go. And those will include a couple pieces. And for the goals, well, that's me. It's a picture of me. In case you can't see me, that's what I look like in a different place. And that's my contact info. If you want to reach out, screenshot that, feel free. So this presentation is mostly not an ad for the Phoenix. I've been to many conferences. I find it occasionally exhausting when the presentation is just an hour-long infomercial. So that is not my goal. I will be talking about the work I do because I love it. And I think it's really important. But that is my goal, is that you're not just like, oh, that was a lovely infomercial. That's not it. Second one is that you come away with something you didn't know that makes you a little mad or frustrated or inspires action. I think anger can be a very helpful emotion at times, especially in some of the work we do. And then a roadmap for how your held knowledge and experience can help others recover in your own community. I know, kind of preaching to the choir here, we probably got everyone on the call who's doing some form of work already in community, in recovery, and or some form of recovery. And so I know that's probably already happening, but I'm going to kind of approach that in a specific way. And I'm trying not to monologue for too long. I'm also going to try to wrap it quicker than an hour. Let's see how we do. So the Phoenix's mission, the organization I work for, we're a national nonprofit. I guess we have a couple programs happening in Canada and the UK, so international. It's to build a sober, active community that fuels resilience and harnesses the transformational power of connection so that together we rise, recover, and live. That is right from the website. And that's what drives everything we do. Primarily, we're based in community. We do events primarily that are volunteer led, and those events are free to anyone with 48 hours or more of sobriety. And the goal is to really create a reason for people to come together and have a safe, sober space while we do it. So I'm going to do intros with everybody. So we're going to do a little breakout room moment. I know not everyone might be able to come on and speak, but if you can, would appreciate you doing that. And again, either screenshot this or just take a little note. So the prompt, you're going to do your name, your pronouns, why you're here, like this version, not the like, I'm doing this version right now, but like the short little version. And then would you rather, this is our icebreaker, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses, and why? I'll save my answer. Just think about if you were in a situation, which would you rather fight, one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? So Katie, if we could go to the breakout rooms for 2 minutes, we'll do, and then we'll get people back. Should be breaking out shortly. Sweet. I think folks will have to, yeah, there we go.
Hi, Rose. Are you able to see the breakout room?
Yes, but I don't want to participate right at the moment. I'm eating.
Okay, no worries. Andy, do you want me to send you to a room? I had put that we didn't, but I don't know if you wanted to.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
We'll hang tight. And then I'll just bring people back in like a minute.
Hi, Maureen. Did you get bounced out of the room? Just kidding.
Maybe they really got into it and it's too much conflict.
I would choose the one horse.
Oh, I feel like, well, I guess once you're done with the one horse, like you're done. The one
Yeah,
horse-sized duck, but I just feel like it would be a real challenge.
I feel like it would be a lot easier for you though. You are like abnormally tall.
I'm 6'1".
That's really tall. Let's see. Average male
All right,
height.
let's bring them back.
Okay. Just to let you know, the average height is 69 inches. I'm going to broadcast last 15 seconds.
Sharon was ready. She was like, I answered. Is that the Sharon?
Yeah, I got booted right as I went into room 2. So
Dang it.
so if you can send me back to room 2, I'll go there, but
We're pulling people
Yeah.
out. It's fine.
okay.
All right, I'm closing all rooms now. Rose, are you in San Jose, California?
Yes, I work in San Jose. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I went to school at San Jose State. Melissa's actually, Melissa R., who's in this group right now, she's actually in the Bay Area as well.
Oh, nice.
All right, are people back?
Room 2 is still active, I believe. Yeah, room 2 is still active, but they're closing in like 2 seconds. So
Great icebreaker, Andy.
It's a problem. Here's the thing, if you're fighting a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses, something is not going right. And I think we can all agree on that. Feel free to share your answers. So obviously a building block of community is getting to know each other a little bit. So I wanted to do that a little bit here. I had planned to do a brief guided meditation, which is also a type of event that we do, but it's 4:30. I will spare you the nap. And you can read the lovely guided meditation in the notes if you like. And so just briefly, if you can, and you can share in the chat or you can keep it in front of you. It'll be good to have a little something to write with. If you could change one thing about how we treat addiction in this country, what would it be? And just take a beat and either write that down or type that out. I'll give folks a second here. And as you're thinking of that answer and we go through the presentation, I'd love for folks to see basically where that issue, if that issue shows up, either in some of the data we look at together or in some of the maybe arguments we'll be making. And notice how you might maybe bolster that argument. So my hope is folks can kind of come away with a little something that they can use as a talking point, and go from there. So keep that in mind as we're going through. So the status quo, there's a lot here. I kind of cherry picked some stats for folks and to kind of describe the scale of the problem of substance use disorder. So there are 46.2 million people. This is based on a SAMHSA survey from 2021-2022 that have substance use in the US. That's all kinds of substances, and it is an estimate, but it's based on surveys that SAMHSA does. And after the presentation, you can look at the paper that they released on that. It's kind of a basic piece of info that's put out every year. And then when we talk about capacity for treatment, it's kind of a different thing, but 6.3% of those who had a substance use disorder in this period received treatment in the past year from the over 15,000 facilities in the US. And that's of that total pie, right? So that's of that, in theory, 46.2 million people, 6.3% receive some kind of treatment. And that includes residential, it includes detox, it includes outpatient. Some of you may be familiar with the idea of a treatment spectrum. And the kind of traditional version of that is first, and it doesn't apply to everybody, but would be detox, residential treatment, outpatient treatment, often with some kind of sober living component. And then when we talk about the money, it's estimated that this is a $42 billion industry as of 2020. So it's a couple years out of date, and expect that to be a bit higher now. And then we talk about the loss. So just the sheer loss of life when we're talking about addiction. We had just from drug use over 101,000 people die in 2021. That does not include alcohol-related deaths, which is another 99,000. So we're talking over 200,000 people in a single year that have passed away due to some kind of substance use or substance-related incident. And that's from the National Center for Health Statistics. So when we talk about addiction, like these are some of the things we're talking about. And, because some people, I know everyone has their own reason for being here. And really what this translates to is the people we know, right? And I had a person who's a team member who's come to events who passed away just in the last couple of weeks, who's a 20-year-old kid. And I think we all have those examples, and it can be hard to do this work for that reason. I loved, being able to be in some of the sessions about burnout and dealing with working in the front lines of addiction, because it can be really hard. And then personally, I think we see it all the time. And if you go into a room and you ask how many people know someone who might have a problem with substances, I don't think I've ever been in a room where 70-80% of the hands aren't up. That's when I was in the theater, and we used theater to teach about addiction at my last nonprofit, and we would do that, and it was routinely in rooms full of kids and rooms full of middle schoolers and high schoolers. You had basically everyone knows someone. And so getting into the breakdown and how we tackle the problem, my argument, and I'll kind of circle back to some of these stats, but my argument is really that it's largely a structural problem. That when we look at 6.3% of people are able to access treatment in a given year, that's a total failure of the structures that we've built to respond to the problem. They literally can't handle the demand, right? Which isn't to say that everyone who experiences substance use disorder needs that kind of formal treatment, but we know that the demand isn't being met. I think, I have friends that work in treatment, and routinely there are wait lists, and it can be very difficult to get into that system. So we have the scale of the problem. The scale of the problem is overwhelming to the systems and structures that we currently have in the traditional treatment spectrum. And then when we talk about capacity of those systems to support the need, again, we get into the issue of not enough beds, not enough people that are trained to help, not enough people that have the resources to help, right? And then kind of within that, and it all compounds, is this the credentialing we see in the treatment industry. It's like my bugbear. It's, I think, a huge issue when we talk about expanding the capacity of these systems to respond, and the capacity of treatment to actually help people, right? And credentialing is a complicated thing, because on one hand, you need credentialing of people and proper training to make sure that there are not abuses, and that there aren't basically negative knock-on effects of capitalism, for lack of a better term. We see issues like body brokering, where because of the profit incentive, you have people that are being run through treatment multiple times in an abusive way to make profit. And so those things need to be combated. And so the response largely from the government and state and local and the treatment structures themselves is to credential, right? But then what you do is you naturally are limiting the ability and the capacity for organizations to take in more people, right? So it's kind of a necessary evil in that way, in the the treatment world and in the world that we work in recovery. And it can be really problematic when we're looking at a problem that, again, 46.2 million people have, and that has led to 200,000 deaths. And then we get into the money, which I feel like I don't know, like shaking my fist. But there are a lot of ways that profit and capital has corrupted the response to the need for recovery. And one of those obviously talked about practices that like body brokering, and then just the basic misaligned incentive, which is to say that if we truly help people recover, then for-profit, especially for-profit, but even nonprofit institutions go out of business, right? So there's actually a counter incentive to having effective treatment. And there's a lot of good work in this area that's got into, rewarding organizations that are doing work for folks with low income, or who maybe don't have insurance. But I think broadly we see it as it's a real problem. The other ways I would say, we know that funding is a huge issue for nonprofits and organizations doing work in other spaces, right? So for every, I don't have the stat off the top of my head, I looked for it, but there's a huge amount of money that goes into that direct kind of traditional treatment pipeline as opposed to prevention and recovery services. And that high quality treatment is also the most expensive kind of treatment. And then disproportionately, that funding is not spread across, organizations that can reach the largest number of people. And then finally, I think, if you want to get into like what a market failure is when talking, it's an economic term, but I think a basic market failure is when essentially for-profit or market forces aren't able to work and solve a problem, like 200,000 people passing away due to this disease. So with kind of all that set up, and again, I'm not calling out any particular person or institution. I know a lot of people that work in the treatment industry who are wonderful and where their hearts are there, and they're doing work that honestly I would find extremely challenging. But it's the structure of it. It's the actual system itself that's unable to respond to this problem at scale, the scale that we need, right? Because that 20-year-old kid, if he had as many sober activities and fun things to do as he had liquor stores and drug dealers on the corner, like he might still be here. And that's one of the ways I think about it. And as a person in recovery, I also think, and I'm frustrated by, when we get into the credentialing idea, that there's kind of a discounting of being experts in our own experience and being able to use that to help people at any scale. Because what academic and funding and governmental institutions are set up to do is they're set up to identify experts, do research, provide funding to those kind of institutions, and keep that loop going. And that kind of structure just isn't as able to respond to the problem as we might need. So it's a lot of problem. But hopefully we have ways to deal with it. I think, I've been heartened being on this conference today, seeing all the ways that ordinary people are standing up and raising their hands and helping the people that, were just where they used to be. And we're going to get into that in a second, but I'm going to pivot here and you can drop it in the chat. But my prompt for you all is, how long do you think I have been sober? And if you know, as some people here do, don't tell them. Put that in the chat, put the number of days, months, years. I'm not taking it personally. You don't have to artificially inflate what you're thinking. All right, we get a 5. What else? Keep going. This may or may not work, by the way. I'm trying something here. Okay, we got a 5, we got a 5, we got a 10. I need like 3 more. We got 7, we got 15. All right, that might be it. Katie, what's our average?
Play the Jeopardy song. I'm almost there.
Do, 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 do. I actually thought about having the Jeopardy song here. And then you told me playing music from my speaker sounds terrible. So I decided not to do that. But I can vamp. So for those of you who don't know, vamping is a term we use in entertainment. It's when there's someone on stage basically just filling time before the main act comes on stage. And I love to vamp and share about vamping. It has nothing to do with vampires, as far as I know. It's just a term like, you know, if like the hype man's out and they're hyping everyone
You're good.
up. Do you get it?
You're good, hype man. Yeah. Thank
What
you
is
for
it?
your vamp explanation. Your average is 9.5 years.
Ooh, so close. So I'm 12 years sober. Thank you. I had y'all do that because there's a principle called the wisdom of crowds. There's a book about it called The Wisdom of Crowds, for those of you who are not familiar. And it got started with they have those jars that with like a bunch of marbles in it, and everyone has to guess the number of marbles. And the principle essentially is that when you have any significant number of people bring their knowledge to bear on a problem, the collective answer is often very close to correct. So in the marble example, when they do that, usually there are very few people who get it right, but the average is on point. And the same is almost true for the question I just asked you. I bet if we had like 3 more people, we would have nailed it with the average. And, you know, it's not a perfect application of this idea, but I think it goes to show the held wisdom that as a mass of people who are peers, often of people who are in recovery, the wisdom that we can bring to bear on the problem. And I hope, you know, kind of an encouraging piece, data point that like, oh, hey, like I actually do know how I can help, you know, and how I can apply my expertise in my experience onto this massive issue. You know, I'm throwing these like numbers around, millions, hundreds of thousands, and it can seem overwhelming, but the ways that we help are really personal and kind of on a person by person basis. So the other stat that I'll give you is that of people who consider themselves in recovery, only 3/4, or actually only 1/4, did so with formal treatment. So the fact of all the ways in which that kind of societal structure is flawed or broken or not able to meet the problem doesn't mean that there isn't huge work and strides being done outside of that system. And I think that's really a hopeful thing and a reason to pour our energy and resources into the kinds of peer-based solutions that we're here to talk about today. So thank you for playing along. Next up, so I want to get into this idea of really principles versus professionalism. And I'll just read the slide because I wrote it. Professional help, while an essential element of treatment for many, is a bottleneck. And we talked about all the ways in which that's true. And we, at least at the Phoenix, and myself and my experience doing other peer-based interventions. I got sober through 12-step. I still participate in that group. And actually there's a lot of great study information on Recovery Research Institute, which is a website run by a doctor out of MGH in Boston, on the efficacy of peer-based and specifically 12-step programs with folks. And that a peer-led movement based on service in principles is more effective at keeping people sober and keeping people in recovery than certifying and profit motive. I'm kind of setting it up a little to be a little mischievous. It's not actually like an either or, but when we're seeing where state and national dollars are going, and we're thinking of how we might direct that funding, and we have structures that have built out even in the state of California, right? We have CCAP, we have other advocacy organizations. It's a really important thing to keep in mind that the solutions that exist that actually can serve people every single day after that 9-month treatment stint, if you're lucky to do, or 9 months, what am I saying, 90 days and maybe another 60 outpatient, really are these peer-based solutions that we see, that share supports, that recovery cafes support, that 12-step supports, that hopefully Phoenix supports, right? And then the other idea here that I want to really drill down in is this idea of service and the basic principle that by being of service, I am actually building resilience in myself, and that I'm building an ability in my own recovery becomes much stronger. And so I'm going to put on a little video of my friend Dina. Hopefully the sound works and you can hear it, but we'll see. It's quiet at first. Can folks hear this?
Am I willing to give up my recovery
Oh, you
just
can.
to get
Yes.
out?
Great.
Today I might not be able to say that tomorrow, but today I fight. I don't think I'd be a very healthy person mentally or spiritually if I held on to regrets. And the only regret I can honestly say that I have is hurting my children. Just because I'm clean doesn't mean I don't have a bad day. Or I got a job really easy, or I got my family's trust back really easy. I had to work for all those because, trust is the first thing you lose. Anything that's recovery related that is asked of me to do, I do it. Best gift I've been given in a long time was the Phoenix. It's not just the physicality of it. From the first day that I walked through the doors of the Phoenix, they remember my name. We're not friends, we're family. This is family. And you're not made to feel welcome because that's their job. It's because, you know what, we want to help you save your life. Doing groups and stuff that we have, what we like to do in your spare time. I always mention fitness, always. She said, I got this place for you. And I said, well, I'm not working right now. I can't afford to go to a membership. She said, it's free. What's the catch? She's like, I think you got to be clean for 48 hours. Okay, I'll come with you. Court and Nikki do CrossFit together every Saturday. Cheo and I, most Thursdays or Friday nights, this is our date night, rock climbing together. Phoenix has become the thing. When we're all here, it's fun. My family is Nico, Dia, and Cheo in Phoenix. My family's just got bigger. That's all. And I have no desire to reintroduce negative things into my life. It's all about positivity from here on out. Because you know what, for me, sky is the limit. Definitely. I am nowhere near done. I'm gonna be great one day. Yeah.
That's Dina. We love Dina. Dina's my coworker in Boston. If anyone's gotten wicked sober in Boston before. All right, a little infomercially. I'm betraying my no ad rule a little bit, but I think kind of core to that video, right, is this idea of service as a tool and as a way that we work with each other. And then, in terms of setting up these principle-based structures, I think principles are really important because they're constant and they are exportable, right? And there's no real governing body over a principle. And when we're talking about scale and growing to, something that can serve 42+ million people, and hopefully save 200,000 lives, I think you need something that's really scalable. It's the reason you see hundreds and thousands of 12-step meetings every single day in any given area, kind of no matter where you are, because there's not like a 12-step police, and there's not there's a kind of an organization, but there's not so much a governing body. And so as we consider the ways that we approach peer-based work, I think this idea of holding principles constant is really key. And so Phoenix, as an example, has some principles that we talk about. And so those 4 here are: we honor recovery and sobriety, and we kind of elaborate on those, to try to make it clearer for folks. But I think core to what we do is we honor recovery and sobriety. We're here to lift each other up. So, when I do my work, it's all about showing how freaking awesome recovery is. I just spent probably 30 minutes talking about the problem. We don't really talk about the problem when we do an event or we do something for the community. We talk about the solution we're living in. To do that, we want to be in safe spaces. So we strive to build those. That means doing little things like pronouns at the beginning so that everyone feels included, so that we're not assuming anything about each other. That means making our events, not about hitting on people or romance, right? We make our events safe and supportive in that way. We always call that out, and that means having language that's inclusive and not putting anyone out, and then we carry the Phoenix to others, this idea of service, this idea of volunteering, this idea of giving of your time is really important to building a movement, as opposed to just expanding as an organization, or expanding the fundraising that we do, right? Because even nonprofits can be captured by all the misaligned incentives and the profit motives that we see in the rest of the industry. So that's a really important piece that we have to hold steady. And my hope is maybe there's one person here who's thinking about starting an organization or thinking about contributing to the movement, and that starting with kind of this principles-based approach and calling out the values that you hope that community has and adopts can be really, really powerful. I have another video that I'm going to skip for time because I want to leave time at the end, but you can watch this video later. It's kind of about our volunteers and how they do what they do. And then, you know, I think I've been in a couple of sessions today. There are a lot of ways that we measure efficacy. We don't, we have done studies on how programs help people stay sober, but we think given the nature of the disease of addiction, the nature of it being a high relapsing disorder, the fact that it's kind of multimodal and depends on a number of factors, including genetics, environment, lived experience, trauma, right? That actually time in recovery might not be the best measure. I know there are some communities where that's a real value. And it's not to kind of malign that, but that also we want to be open to multiple pathways of recovery to, you know, cover the maximal space that we possibly can. And that might include folks that don't know if abstinence from all substances is for them, or might need medication assisted treatment, right? So these are how we measure our success. And I also, encourage folks, like, find a framework that can validate what y'all do. Because to go back to the credentialing idea, the validating of the model, this is a huge thing. Y'all know, if you work in nonprofits, we love to validate a model. We love a logic model. We love a da-da-da. We love a grant, granting organizations love data that they can hang their hat on, right? And we have to be respectful if we're accepting donor dollars as opposed to charging our constituents, which is something we don't do. All our programs are free. If we're not going to charge and we're going to exist in the capitalist society we exist in, we need funding. And so we need to be able to build that argument. And this is one framework that we use. It's called CHIME, measures a sense of connectedness, hope, identity, meaning, and empowerment in people's recovery. And we've seen, really dramatic improvements on all these fronts with all the programs that we run. And so just an example of one of those models. I know we kind of all maybe find our own, but if you're looking for one, this is a pretty good one and used pretty widely as well. And then lastly, I want to do a little exercise to close. We're going to go, and this will need some audience participation. So I don't know that we need, how many folks do we have here? I don't know that we need to do a breakout. We can probably all stay here, but I'm going to give everyone a minute to write down all the things you do for fun. Write as many as you can. And you have a minute starting meow.
Wait, write it in the chat or write it just in
Yeah,
general?
just write it in your own space.
Got it.
Or mind. Seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Now, I'll give some examples. I love cycling. I like my little lap dog, this Potato. He's with me at all times during all meetings. I like food. I like to go hiking. Those are some examples. So I want you to pick one of the things you wrote down, and one that you would like to do with friends on a weekly basis. So pick one of those things. What would it be? I'm not saying you have to do this. You don't have to do it. But what would it be? And then as you're picking that, I won't do we'll do the junior version because I want to leave time for questions and discussion at the end. But where would you do it? If you were to start a little activity tomorrow, where would you do it? What would you need? And what are 3 ways you could get the word out? Maybe it's like texting friends, posting on Facebook, making a flyer. Does anyone want to share? It's the title of our host. Go for it, Vanessa.
Okay, walking with my friends.
Nice. Where would you do it?
In the park, where there's a lot of vegetations, animals, a lot of shade, and it is fresh. I would love to do that.
Love that. How would you get the word out?
Because I have a lot of activities that I have to do through my church. I will just to be able to tell one, and that one it will be spreading the words, and probably like 10 or 12 we're gonna be able to go and have fun walking and talking. So yeah.
I love that. We love a walk. Anyone else want to share? Any of our share hosts? Go for it, Ruth. Thanks for joining us. What an amazing conference and organization you got here.
Thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I had to get a form filled out for the Department of Mental Health. But anyway, I would choose cooking. I would do it at home because when I remodeled my kitchen, I put in 3 ovens so that we could cook enough pies for Thanksgiving. I'm from New England originally. And so we do Thanksgiving and we make 28 pies for everybody that we're feeding at the 2 centers. So, so what I need is the food to do the cooking with. And I could text people I know, I could talk to people I know, and I could invite people that I know. I wouldn't want to do it with just anybody. I'd want to pick who I was doing it with.
For sure. All right, cooking class at Ruth's house, November 1st. Thank you for sharing. And I know we probably have other examples as well. But I encourage folks, we can start small, and if we all start small, what happens is we are doing something huge. And just to use in terms of how Phoenix is an organization, what we do to support this kind of work is that we try to outfit people with some assistance on getting materials for events, on finding spaces to run events, and on that kind of outreach piece. Can be intimidating to start a little event and be leading something, and so we try to support every step of the way. And this is a little bit this is the most infomercially it gets, I promise. If y'all are interested in kind of finding out more about Phoenix, we have an app. It's on that QR code. If you want to hit that, that's also a link in the presentation that's going to go out. And the app is just a great way to see what events are happening nearby, and to also potentially raise your hand to be a volunteer. We do ask anyone who volunteers with us to have taken a Phoenix event before. And folks can connect on the app as well and communicate and message each other. So it's a great place for people in recovery and allies of people in recovery to connect in that kind of virtual way. So that's kind of our piece. And one of the other ways that we try to help support people that have that kind of service in their heart and that want to work on this problem in some way in their life. Again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We got everyone in here works on this problem in some way. But it can be really nice to do it really personally and relationally with each other. That's the end of my presentation. I can't believe I talked so much. if anyone, I'd love to take any questions or have any discussion that folks want to have for the next 8 minutes or so. And then my day's over, y'all. I bet yours are too. So no sweat if you need to head out, but we'll just hold it for a couple minutes.